We're in the book of Acts. Christ is continuing to do and teach. Now that he is exalted, he is making himself present. He is making himself present in the church by his Holy Spirit. And the church is embracing all the truth that they are learning about Christ. And they're making that church, which is not only indestructible, for here 2,000 years later, this is the beginning of the church here, 2,000 years later, we're still around, yes? And they're making it in Acts, the early chapters of Acts here, they're making the truth beautiful. The great city in Revelation 21 is not only indestructible with walls squared off and 1,400 plus miles high, not only indestructible, it's beautiful. Read the description with all the stones and the streets and pearl gates and all of that kind of thing. In reality, in the book of Acts in chapter 2, and then in chapter 4, they are distributing and giving to one another, rejoicing with one another, clothing one another, giving houses and land for one another. And the people grew in the sense of the people. The people who saw them thought how marvelous it all is. This is Acts 4:32 to 37. And in the Acts 2 section, it's Acts 2, make it 42 to 47. And 47 tells us they were praising God and having favor with all the people. The people saw people embracing truth about God, declaring not only is it true in speech and in song and in prayer and in sacrament, in the Eucharistic meal, the Holy Communion meal, the Lord's Supper meal. All of that, they were showing their faith, but they were making that faith beautiful in the eyes of people who could see it. James makes it clear in the book of James, and so does 1 John. But James says, if there's somebody in need and you won't help him, if there's somebody who is one of the poor kind, and you say, here, you sit over there and you take the big hitters and put them in the prominent places. He said, you think your faith counts for something? No. In taking care of the poor, and taking care of the homeless, and taking care of the whoever, who are the vulnerable and the voiceless and the needy, and doing all of that, you not only identify yourself with Christ, you identify Christ with those people. Matthew 25, Christ says, when you fed them, it was me you were feeding. When you leave them unvisited, it's me you're leaving lonely. When you leave them naked, won't give them clothes, it's me you won't clothe. Yeah, all of that. For he identified the incarnation, makes it clear that Jesus identified with the human family of the world and did it in particular, not exclusively, but in particular for the poor and the voiceless and the vulnerable and the beaten, all of those who are being abused by the power people. And read through the prophets, by George, the prophets make it very clear, in offending the poor, you men, you women, Isaiah early on, you love shoes, don't you? Buy a pair of shoes for somebody you've enslaved. And then in Proverbs, when you humiliate or take advantage of a poor man, you offend his maker. You hurt the heart of his maker. God has well, read it for yourself in the Old Testament. God has a soft spot for the poor and the voiceless and the vulnerable, for children, older people, for anybody who's under the gun. And so when the church, they got together, and needy and all of that, and then in the collection that Paul works with in 1 Corinthians 11 and then 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, those two whole chapters, it's peculiarly for those who are in the Lord Jesus Christ, but not exclusively. For Paul says we'll share it to everyone, not just the believers. Read that for yourself in 2 Corinthians 9. For all, he says. And then he tells them in Galatians to be good and kind and caring to everyone, especially those of the household of faith. Yeah, well, all of that has social, good common sense with. The church here, early in the book of Acts, was making truth beautiful. And don't regret doing what is right and sharing what you have to share in wise circumstances, handling it right, doing all of that. It's important that we are wise. It is important that we are wise in how we do benevolence and care. Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 5 wants people to be cared for. So he talks about a register, people being registered, and only those who are truly needy are on the register. That sees to it, if it's done well, that those who don't want to work, don't want to care for themselves, and aren't quite able to do it, they just want to be spongers or freeloaders in the worst sense of those terms. If you register it and you're wise, it's just smart and wise. And it means that you have more resources to take care of those that are truly needy. The church was doing it wisely and well up to this point that we're talking about, and they're making truth look beautiful. And Isaiah the prophet, we're finishing off this time with this. In Isaiah 32, coming out of Babylon, better days ahead. Your future doesn't end Babylonian-like. There's a day coming. No specific day mentioned. He's only describing what will happen in that day. Whenever it happens, when the world is better, he's saying. Kings, what will they do? They'll reign in righteousness. Princes, what will they do? Oh, they will judge in fairness. They'll do what is right. Then he says in verse 2, a man. Here it's a man. It's a person. The word is person, and of course, inclusive versions, I'm sure, I haven't checked, but inclusive versions would say a person, a human, a decent, a right kind of person. Do you know what you'll find when the world is better? A man will be a hiding place from the wind. And a nice vision. What do you need to get a hold of that? What do you need to do? Bit of imagination. Eh? During tornado weather, hurricane weather, there are buildings filled with people who come looking for shelter. And they get in and they are assured. In airports, they have places where people can go in tornado weather. Hey, imagine being in the middle of a hurricane, frightened. Imagine being in the territory where a tornado is happening. Hey? And then you find a deep cave, warm and solid as a mountain, eh? Wouldn't that be a lovely place to be? Lovely place to find? And God says, when the world is better in a coming day, you know what a man or a woman, a good man or a woman will be like? A hiding place from a storm of wind. Ah. And if you're in a sandy, deserty area, picture this. Picture friends caught in one of these and all the panic that's going on, all the trouble that's going on, children by the hand. And he says, wait, I know a place up here. And then they come across this cave. When the world is better, you know what a human's going to look like? Do you remember what it was like when you found that cave that kept you from the wind? That's what they're going to be like. Then verse 2, and a cover from the tempest. That's the story we just covered. And then he says in 2b, as rivers of water in a dry place, bless me. You've been thirsty. Well, you know the story, but make your own picture of this. What's he talking about? He's talking about a day when the world will be better. A day when there's a new world. When you're free, every man will be as free as a bird. Every voice will be a voice to be heard, says Brickus and Ornadell. He said, in that day that's coming, in that world that's coming, you will look at people, and every man or woman that you see, you know what she'll remind you of? What he'll remind you of? He reminds you of a place where you can go choking with thirst and taking a big cup into that water and gurgling it down. I want to be like that. Yeah, I do. You know what I mean. So do you. In our best moments, in our better moments, we just want to do it right, don't we? Don't we? Yeah, we do. Well, we'll make it, God helping us giving ourselves to Him with all the flaws and whatever else that He knows about. We'll make it. We're all going to meet one of these days who are embraced, whoever they are, wherever they are, who are embraced in the completed work the redeeming work of God. We're all going to meet together. What a world. And everybody we see, everybody we meet, men, women, boys and girls, we're going to look at them and think, what a beauty that is. And they'll remind us of the trouble that we were through, the thirst that was choking us, the dust. I'm good at that, am I not? Choking in the dust in our throat, and then finding water. When we were kids, we used to go up the Divis Mountains in Ireland. We used to go up the mountains, the Divis Mountains, and there was a pipe a good way up, halfway up the mountain. We'll call it a mountain. Unless you're in Florida, it wouldn't be a mountain. You'd call it a hill. High enough for us when we're young boys and girls. It was a pipe coming out of the side of the mountain, and there was water coming out of it all the time. You know, we called it up the glen. That's what we called it. You started with the glen, and then you headed on up the mountain, you see. I mean, we'd say, a lot of us would say, let's go up to the glen. Sometimes, believe this, I'm telling you it's true. Sometimes, you know what we wanted to go up there for? Because it was a good old walk and it was steep and that. We just wanted to drink the water out of that pipe. As God is my witness, every once in a while that was it. Of course, there were girls up there at the time, and you know, we went up to see the girls, and that. I get that as well. But there were times when we just wanted to get up and drink that water, and it was cold as ice. And maybe it wasn't any better than the water that came out of our water taps. Maybe not. But it's setting, and the coldness of it, we were sure, and then we would do it. I remember how well we did it. We looked at one another, yeah, worth the walk. What a life, eh? When the world is better, everyone you see will be like someone who took your choking thirst away. And he said, last phrase of 2, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. Frank Borum, B-O-R-E-H-A-M, Frank Borum, says, you know something about a shadow? He said a lot of things about a shadow. He said, you know something about a shadow? Never makes any demands. It's not heavy. Nothing like that. It just bees what it is. You've done all of these things, and I have done too. I've done this. I know. We played soccer, football in the street, till the sweat was pouring out of us and we're dehydrated. And then we'd had enough, and we'd sit down against the back wall of a row of houses in the shade and love it. Can you imagine what it would be like in a desert when these were talking here? Heat stroke, people threatened, been walking for miles in the sun, feeling like we're dying here. And then the Father is saying, just do your best, keep up, don't give up. I know a place. There's this big rock that sits up out of the ground, and water trickles out of it. And it's a big rock, so there'll be a shade there. And here they are, 30 minutes later, no sign of the rock. Now they're just about crawling. And then the boy shouts, "There it is." Oh, I love this. And there it is. And now those who knew they couldn't crawl another foot staggered to their feet and made it to the shadow of a big rock in a dry, hot land. He said there's a world coming, a better world coming. You know what the people are going to be like? Kings would reign in righteousness. Princes would reign in justice. Every person you'd see, man, woman, boy or girl, you know what they'd be like? They'd be like a place you could hide from the wind, and they would be a cave against the storm. They'd be like a pool or a river that you could drink from. And they'd be like a shadow that you could hide behind when the heat is on. Everyone you see, the images of those things, your past experiences, all of that will come to you. That's the kind of people who will live in that world. And there are people you know, who are living in the heat of the day. No shadow. Nobody there they can run to and hide behind. There are women, multiplied millions of them over the world, where the blood is beaten out of them. Husbands, hard, drunken, and on and on. Little girls and boys assaulted sexually by their father. No one to talk to, no one to tell it to. Oh, dear God. There are people financially strapped, just people who are jobless, and in part are jobless because they're not skilled and nobody has helped them to become skilled, so they can't even apply for lots of jobs because they don't have any skill, and no one. Jack Reese and Don Williams in the Dallas area work at that very thing, promoting and giving people a chance to be educated so that they can get jobs, and helping and talking to all the people of influence. These two men and whoever else is involved with them are doing that. To be a rock or a cave where people can hide against the wind that they can't stand up in. To be a stream or a pool and not just a mirage that they can drink from. And to be a shadow in the heat of life that they can hide behind? Is that heaven? Probably. But is it heaven after a while? Later? Thank God it's going to be there. Yeah. It's heaven right now. It's heaven right now for those that you engage with, that the church engages with. It's heaven right now for those who find you to be honest, self-giving, one who's willing to invest time and energy in them. Well, I don't know anybody like that. Finding out, maybe. I'm not trying to bully you or anything else. I'm not talking about that at all. And I'm certainly not sitting in judgment on you at all. I'm simply talking about the people on the other side of the trouble who wish that there was somewhere they could get a drink, somewhere they could hide, somewhere out of the heat of the day that they could find a shadow. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying while the book of Acts doesn't develop all of that, it says enough about selling land, selling property, selling and giving and sharing and all of that. Certainly does that. To take truth and do well with it, and kindness, consistent kindness for congregations to say, well, we've got a lot of truth and we've got rich theology, but a little rich theology goes a long way when we use it. And it would be wonderful to be part of a congregation where money and time and energy is spent on the needy in a wise, not all hyped up. Didn't have to be that. To be used and made look, the truth made to look beautiful by caring for the uncared for. I don't know what the financial state of things is. I'm not really particularly interested in being negative here. Honestly, I'm not. But I am thinking about how congregations can make truth look lovely to non-Christians, so that as in Acts 2:47, they had favor with all the people. I don't think we ought to be silly about how we share our money and how we share our resources. I know better than that. But we need to share. The Hebrew writer, closing out his little remark, says, but share. To share. Forget not, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. Wouldn't it be great to be part of an assembly where somebody who knew it well was talking to someone else. Well, who are they down there? And she says, or he says, or they say, what are they like? They remind me of kings who know how to rule. They remind me of princes who don't take bribes and are fair. They remind me, you know what they remind me of? They remind me of a place you can go in tornado weather. A cave to hide in. They remind me of being able to slake your throat and your thirst in a ice cold drink of water like David wanted when he said, oh, 2 Samuel 23, wish I had a drink from the well at Bethlehem. They remind me of a place where you can drink long and quench your thirst. And they remind me of a place where you can get shelter, a shadow, when the heat of life is burning you up and you think you're going to die. Wouldn't it be great to be part of an assembly like that? People would get to know you. They would get to know you, and they would get to know you because you made the truth about God, who has shown himself in Jesus Christ. You made it look beautiful. God bless you.